I'm not a lawyer, but let's get into day 10 of the Karen Reed trial. So, cross examination of Brian Albert starts off the day. Brian talks through how he and Brian Higgins had just road tripped from New York, where they attended another officer's funeral, back to Boston the day before John O'Keefe was found in the front of 34 Fairview Road. As the two are headed back to town, they stop for food and drinks.
So once you got back from that relatively long road trip, that 4-hour long road trip, you stopped at a bar and started drinking, correct?
Yes.
During the course of that road trip, or at the hillside, did the two of you discuss Karen Reed, my client?
No.
Did her name ever come up?
No.
Did he mention the fact that he'd been texting and flirting with Karen Reed 2 weeks prior?
No.
So that subject, according to you, was never addressed or broached by Mr. Higgins or you.
No.
After you arrived at the waterfall, John O'Keefe arrived subsequent thereto, right?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, did Mr. Higgins say anything to you at that time about John O'Keefe arriving with Karen Reed?
No.
Did Mr. Higgins say anything to you about being upset that Karen Reed had shown up with John O'Keefe?
No.
Isn't it true, Mr. Albert, not only had you met Miss Reed, but you had spent several hours with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe 6 days before this incident?
No.
In fact, on January 22nd, 2022, you socialized with Karen Reed at the Hillside Bar for several hours, didn't you?
I was at the Hillside Bar the week prior, yes.
For several other folks at the bar, correct?
Several people, yes.
That included Chris Albert, your brother,
Yes.
a guy named Tim Daly, Julie Albert was there,
Yes.
Jen McCabe was there,
Yes.
Matt McCabe was there,
Yes.
John O'Keefe was there,
Yes, he was.
and Karen Reed was there, correct?
Yes, she was. Chris Albert, myself, John O'Keefe, and Tim Daly.
This was on January 22nd, 2022, at about 11 p.m., correct?
Yes. I have no idea who took that photo. I don't know who took the photo. Well, there were a lot of people there. You mentioned my sister, two sister-in-laws, a brother-in-law. I'm not sure.
Could it have been Karen Reed?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were interacting with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe throughout that evening, correct?
I remember having conversations with John that evening. I don't necessarily remember speaking to Karen that evening.
So you were socializing not exclusively with her,
Right.
but certainly socializing with her 6 days before John O'Keefe ended up dead on your lawn, correct?
We were there at the same time, yes.
And yet, when you were asked 3 months later, do you know Karen Reed, or how do you know Karen Reed, the actual question was, so the female you've never met before, is that fair to say? That was Mr. Lowry's question, and your immediate response was, no, I've never met her or seen her before. That's what you said.
That's not my whole response, no.
That's what you said immediately upon that question, sir.
That's the beginning of my response, yes.
That was the first sentence out of your mouth.
Yes. It appears that I'm talking at the table. I don't know if it's specifically to her, but I was definitely looking that way. I don't remember the conversation.
Sir, you were trying to distance yourself from Miss Reed in your interview with Michael Proctor, weren't you?
No, I was not.
You knew that if you admitted having a relationship with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, you'd have a lot to answer for when Karen Reed's boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later. So you lied under oath when you said, I've never met or seen her before, correct?
No, because that wasn't my whole statement.
Let's get this on the record. Did John O'Keefe come into your house at 34 Fairview at any time on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not. I wished he had.
And you're as sure about that as you are about the statement that you had never met or seen Karen Reed in your life,
Objection.
correct?
Sustained.
You left the waterfall at 11:58, is that right?
Yes, approximately.
Who was inside the house when you walked in?
My nephew Colin, my son Brian, and then he had two friends, female friends. I believe it's Sarah and Julie. They were sitting at the kitchen table. Yes, prior to going to the bathroom, Colin had said that he was getting picked up.
You did give an initial statement on the morning of the 29th to Michael Lang. At no point, isn't it true that at no point during that interview did you admit or mention that Colin Albert had been at the house that night?
I don't believe I did, no.
Is there a reason that you left his name out?
Because he wasn't there. He left when we got there. He wasn't there for the duration of the time that we had that night.
As a matter of fact, in truth, except for the people who lived there, Caitlin was the very last person to leave that location that morning, correct? Were you trying to cover for Caitlin so your daughter would not be wrapped up in this investigation?
No.
Mr. Albert, after you learned that there were questions being raised about John's injuries and dog bites and scratches, in May of 2022, you got rid of that dog, did you not?
Chloe was rehomed in May
And we can use
2022.
whatever words we want to. rehomed, rehoused, whatever. But you got rid of her. She's no longer part of the Albert family, right?
So Chloe was rehomed in, I believe, May
Of 2022,
of 2022.
just months after the incident that we're discussing.
Well, after she was involved in a dog fight with another dog out front.
That's a family pet that you had for 6 years or 7 years.
Approximately 6 or 7 years.
Where were you at 6:03 on the morning of January 29, 2022?
I was sleeping in my room.
Was Nicole in bed with you?
Yes.
Had you taken any medication the night before?
No.
Were you on any sedatives?
No.
Sleeping pills?
No.
Were you wearing a sleep apnea machine?
No.
Were you wearing an eye mask?
No.
Were you wearing earplugs?
No.
You shortly thereafter became aware that 6 emergency vehicles, including a fire engine, police cruisers, and unmarked police vehicles, a civilian SUV, were all parked in front of your house that morning, correct?
I'm not aware of what type of vehicles were parked there, no.
Were you aware that there were emergency responders, first responders, who were talking to each other over the din of the wind and the snow?
No.
You're aware that there were 3 women on your lawn at one point, and at least one of those women was screaming to the top of her lungs at 6:03?
No.
Your German Shepherd was 6 feet from the window, correct?
I don't know that for sure.
That's where Matt was.
Well, that doesn't mean that's where she always is. She also sleeps in the closet area sometimes.
Oh, so now Chloe's in the closet.
I didn't say she was in the closet. I said she sleeps in the closet area sometimes.
Was she sleeping in the closet area that morning?
I don't remember.
Likelihood is she was sleeping on that mat 5 or 6 feet from that window, correct?
Objection. I don't know.
And by the way, earlier that day, you already indicated she was barking because she heard people and noises downstairs when you guys came in the house.
Yes.
Okay. And your explanation is that you and Nicole and Chloe, the German Shepherd, all slept through the entirety of that commotion on your front lawn.
Yes.
We've talked about this a little bit, but I want to ask you a couple of other questions about the layout of the house.
So the basement had a weight room in one of the rooms, and the other room was nothing at the time.
If you wanted to move something large or heavy out of that basement without having to go through the house, could you do that?
There's a bulkhead door you can use. It comes out to the backyard right at the kitchen area.
And right to the left of that, the side fence. And directly through that side fence is the front yard. The same side of the front yard, John O'Keefe's body was found.
Yes. So the bulkhead door opens straight up.
The fact is, you listed that house for sale for the first time ever in November of 2022,
That's the time we listed it, yes.
just months after John O'Keefe was found on your lawn. Mr. Albert, is that timing, according to you, a coincidence?
Well, that's not the timing, actually.
Isn't it true that you were, in fact, ordered to preserve your cell phone by the Commonwealth?
At some point, I was made aware of that, yes. My phone was upgraded and traded in for a new phone.
Another way to say that is you traded your phone in and got rid of it, correct?
I upgraded my phone in September, third week of September, maybe around 22nd.
You got rid of the phone that was the subject of a court order preservation the day before it was ordered preserved.
I upgraded my phone on and around the 22nd, yes.
And you knew that all of the data on that phone would be factory reset and destroyed.
I do not know that.
You're aware that when you turn a phone in and you upgrade it, the phone that you turn in, that data is factory reset, meaning it's gone. It's destroyed off of that device, correct?
Well, I think some data transfers and some doesn't.
We're not talking about a backup. That physical phone becomes a brick.
Right, although some of the data transfers to your new phone.
And you're aware that the very data that you were ordered to preserve would have been destroyed, according to you, the day before.
No.
Because you know that if you got rid of that phone after you had been notified that you were ordered by a court to preserve it, you'd be committing a felony.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
September 4th was my birthday. The phone was broken and failing. I had planned on getting a new phone, and that just happened to be the day that I got it.
Happy birthday. Was that a coincidence?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you and Brian Higgins agree with each other that you were both going to get rid of your phones?
No.
So you're not ruling out the fact that you may have told Brian Higgins that you intended to get rid of your phone, correct?
No.
You're not ruling out the fact that Brian Higgins may have told you that he intended to get rid of his phone.
No, I don't remember him saying that to me.
So now as you sit here and you answer my question, did you and Brian Higgins have a conversation about your phones?
I don't remember having that conversation with Brian Higgins.
Going back to the morning of January 29th, what did you do to get ready for bed, to settle in?
Lied in bed, the TV was on. I was just kind of watching TV. The phone was in bed with me.
So your testimony is that you get in bed after being on a road trip all day long, then at restaurants, then at bars, then at a get-together at your house. And when you go to bed, you don't charge your phone?
No. We have 5 kids, and if somebody was trying to call or if I needed to reach them, it's just kind of a habit I do. I put my reading glasses and my phone in bed with me. Sometimes I charge it, but not as a routine, no. Well, if it's dying, then I'll put it in the charger, but if not, I just leave it on the bed. That night, the phone was on the bed.
You have a specific recollection from 2.5 years ago about the state of the battery charge on your phone such that you know it was in your bed that night.
No, I just know as a routine, I keep my phone in the bed with me. Yes, mostly every night.
I thought you just said 4 questions ago, depends on whether or not the phone needs to be charged. Sometimes you keep it in bed, sometimes you put it on the charger.
If the phone needs to be charged, I charge it, but I sleep in bed with my phone.
And you know what I'm about to ask you, why you're saying you sleep with the phone in the bed, correct?
Sure.
All right,
I
so that's sustained.
What else is in the bed with you? Your keys, your wallet, any other pocket item?
No.
Sir, did you make any phone calls after you went to bed between the hours of 1:45 a.m. and 6:30 a.m.?
I inadvertently called Brian Higgins. I don't recall the exact time. After 2.
2:22 and 35 seconds.
Yes.
How did you inadvertently call him?
Well, I don't know because it was inadvertent. Well, it's kind of like a butt dial.
Is it your testimony, let me just ask, is it
Sure.
your testimony that you and your wife were in the middle of some sort of sexual or intimate situation, and that's what caused you to butt dial the phone at that time at 2:22 a.m.?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are you saying that from your closed and locked phone, you inadvertently tapped your phone one time, and that initiated a butt dial to Brian?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't know that the phone was locked. I could have been looking through my phone, butt dial people often, and make inadvertent calls. Could have hit a last call from him.
So, Mr. Albert, how'd you miss the call 17 seconds later? The call from Brian Higgins had to have been answered by you, isn't that right?
Objection.
Do you agree with that?
No,
Did Nicole, who else was in the room?
just myself and my wife.
And Chloe.
Yes, but Chloe's not a human, so it was myself and my wife.
By process of elimination, Nicole didn't answer that call, did she?
No,
Chloe, the non-human, didn't answer that call, did she?
no.
So who had to have answered the call, sir?
I don't remember answering that call. Could have hit the phone by accident, causing it to answer.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on from this, Mr. Jackson.
Did you have any conversation with Brian Higgins about a 2:22 a.m. phone call?
That next morning, while everything was going on, I mentioned to Brian that I may have butt dialed you last night. Sorry about that.
Did the two of you agree that you were going to both say those calls were butt dials in order to cover up those calls?
Objection. We did not say that.
By the way, you indicated that after you're awake and you're up, you
Right.
started making calls. My question is, what was the first call you made at 7:20?
At 7:20, I called Brian Higgins.
Mr. Albert, you have 6 siblings and 5 kids, right?
Yes,
You have in-laws, cousins, huge family, correct?
yes.
But on the morning you find out that John O'Keefe is laying dead or dying on your lawn, the first call you made at 7:20 was to Brian Higgins. Is that right?
Yes.
After Brian Albert's testimony, Brian Albert Jr. and Caitlin Albert are both called to testify. And much of their testimony is repetitive to what we've already heard, so I'm not going to do a full recap on that. But I will play this clip of Caitlin Albert talking about her relationship with firefighter Katie McLaughlin.
Katie McLaughlin is a girl who I'm the same age as. We went to high school together. We graduated the same year, and we have a couple mutual friends. We interact with some of the same people socially. I can't think of a time, possibly ever, where her and I ever hung out one-on-one or individually. So more of like a friend of a mutual friend.